You charge an electric car in your 120-volt home electricity. It could take 30 hours.
With inflation driving up costs across the board, consumers are watching their wallets more carefully than ever. And for most, the extra cost of an EV simply isn't worth it.
Is the EV revolution already dead before even getting off the ground?
EVs are failing, and that's exactly why they're about to take over. Stay with me. You've been sold a clean story. EVs were supposed to scale, become cheaper, and dominate as both a better product and a better business. But that version of the story is starting to crack, because the companies that pushed EVs the hardest are no longer moving with the same confidence. Honda, Sony, and Porsche are all adjusting, so either they're getting it wrong, or the story itself is. Look closer, and the pattern starts to emerge. At Porsche, electric sport cars are expensive to build, with EV development costs running significantly higher, while battery weight alone can add 300 to 600 kilograms to performance models, and demand at the premium end isn't scaling fast enough to justify that cost structure. At Honda and Sony, a high-tech EV project is being scaled back as production costs rise, with EV platforms often costing 30 to 40% more to produce than comparable combustion models, while returns remain uncertain. Across the industry, the same pressure keeps showing up. Batteries still account for roughly 30 to 40% of total vehicle costs, manufacturing complexity remains high, and the segment that's supposed to carry margins is slowing, with premium EV demand growth falling short of earlier projections in key markets. This is where the story starts to fall apart. If EVs were playing out exactly as expected, the stronger players in the market wouldn't be showing signs of strain. That strain is already visible at the top, with Tesla, the company that made EVs feel inevitable. Over the past year, Tesla has cut prices by as much as 20 to 30% across key markets just to keep demand moving, while automotive margins have dropped from around 30% at their peak to the mid-teens. Revenue is still growing, but profitability isn't keeping pace, and that gap tells you where the model starts to strain. At the same time, Elon Musk is pushing deeper into AI, autonomous systems, and energy infrastructure, while SpaceX expands far beyond cars. So you have to ask, if EVs were delivering exactly what was expected, would Tesla be moving this far beyond them? Now let's look at where China is getting things right, because this is where the gap becomes obvious. China accounts for over 60% of global EV sales and controls roughly 70 to 75% of global battery production, which means it controls the most expensive part of the entire system. That changes everything. While companies like Tesla are cutting prices to protect demand, Chinese manufacturers were built to operate at those price levels from the start. So as the market shifts towards lower prices and tighter margins, the advantage moves towards the players that were structured from the reality from day one. So when you step back and look at everything together, the cost pressure, the strategic pullbacks, the shift in focus, something doesn't quite add up. Because the business is under strain and yet adoption isn't slowing. Wait. What if we misunderstood EVs from the start? Because we've been looking at EVs as a business, but countries aren't reacting to EVs like a business. They're reacting to something else entirely. Tensions involving Iran has exposed how fragile global oil supply really is, with roughly 20% of world's oil moving through a single choke point, and price shocks pushing fuel costs higher across multiple regions. Across Germany, France, and Portugal, EV demand surged by 40 to 50% within weeks as fuel prices climbed. In India, over 1.3 million electric two-wheelers are now being adopted every year to cut fuel dependence. And in Australia, EVs are approaching 12 to 13% of new vehicle sales, supported by widespread solar adoption. What's happening here is countries adjusting under pressure, moving quickly to reduce dependence on unstable fuel markets. And in that kind of environment, the advantage shifts towards the model that was built for it, which is exactly what China focused on from the beginning: cost control, supply chains, and scale that holds up when conditions tighten. Now put that together. Countries aren't waiting for EVs to become perfectly profitable anymore. They're moving because oil volatility makes waiting more expensive. So EVs aren't failing, they're evolving, just not into what we were originally sold. And the real question now isn't whether EVs will win, it's who understood what they were really for first. Stay tuned for more updates only on Pan Finance.